Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins Collections. Today, we have something truly exciting to talk about, the United States 5-cent Jefferson nickel from 1963. Now, you might think a nickel from the 1960s is nothing too special, but if you know what to look for, you could be holding onto a coin that's far more valuable than its face value. This particular nickel has some fascinating details and errors that can make it incredibly valuable to the right collector. So, let's dive in and explore why the 1963 Jefferson nickel is worth your attention and what you should be looking for when you check your own collection or pocket change. By the end of this video, you might just find out that you're sitting on a hidden treasure. To start, let's talk about the key features of the 1963 Jefferson nickel. This coin features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, on the obverse side. The reverse side showcases Monticello, Jefferson's historic home in Virginia. This design has been used on the nickel since 1938, and it has become one of the most recognizable coin designs in U.S. history. The 1963 nickel was minted in large quantities, but there are a few factors that make it stand out. It was struck in the middle of the 1960s, a period marked by the transition of various coinage designs and the increasing interest in collecting U.S. currency. So, while it might seem like just another regular nickel, there are a few important things to consider that could drastically increase its value. One of the main reasons that collectors are particularly interested in the 1963 Jefferson nickel is because of certain errors that can occur during the minting process. These errors are what often make a coin worth more than its face value. Let's take a look at some of the key errors to keep an eye out for. The first and most important error to look for is a double die error. A double die error happens when the coin is struck more than once, causing the design to appear doubled. On the 1963 Jefferson nickel, you might notice this doubling on the date, 1963, or the letters around the rim of the coin. If you closely inspect the coin, you may find that certain areas appear blurry, or you might see a second set of digits or letters next to the first. This error is rare but highly valuable, and finding one of these coins can significantly increase its worth. Another error that can make the 1963 Jefferson nickel valuable is an off-center strike. This occurs when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, resulting in a portion of the design being off the edge of the coin. If you look closely at your nickel and notice that the image of Jefferson or Monticello is misaligned or partially cut off, you could have an off-center strike on your hands. These types of errors are less common, and the more extreme the misalignment, the more valuable the coin becomes. You should also keep an eye out for die cracks, which are another type of minting error. A die crack occurs when the metal die used to strike the coins begins to break down or crack. This can leave a visible line or crack on the surface of the coin. On a 1963 Jefferson nickel, a die crack might appear near Jefferson's portrait or along the rim of the coin. While not as valuable as some of the other errors, coins with die cracks can still be of interest to certain collectors, especially if the crack is large and noticeable. So now that we know the types of errors that can make your 1963 Jefferson nickel more valuable, let's talk about how to spot one. The first thing you should do is carefully examine the coin for any signs of doubling. Hold the nickel up to a light source and use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to get a closer look at the date and the lettering around the coin. If you notice any signs of doubling or blurring on the 1963 or other parts of the design, you might have a double die error on your hands. Next, check the alignment of the coin. Hold it at different angles and see if the design appears to be off-center. This is especially important to look for on the reverse side, where Monticello could be misaligned or cut off. Off-center strikes can vary in severity, and the more misaligned the design is, the more valuable the coin can be. If you don't find a double die error or an off-center strike, don't worry. There's still a chance you've got a valuable 1963 Jefferson nickel. Inspect the surface of the coin for any die cracks, especially near the edges or around Jefferson's portrait. While these cracks may not be as dramatic as the doubling or off-center errors, they still add an element of uniqueness to the coin. Now, let's get to the exciting part, the value. The value of a 1963 Jefferson nickel can vary significantly depending on its condition and whether or not it has any errors. A typical 1963 nickel that is in circulated condition might only be worth a few cents over its face value. However, if your 1963 nickel has a double die error, off-center strike, or significant die cracks, the value can jump significantly. In fact, rare versions of this nickel with these errors can be worth anywhere between $37,000 and $36,000, yes, you heard that right. A simple nickel that you may have overlooked in your collection or spare change could be worth tens of thousands of dollars if it has the right error. It's an exciting reminder of just how rewarding coin collecting can be. So, do you think you might have a valuable 1963 Jefferson nickel in your collection? Or have you found any other rare and valuable coins? We want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share your discoveries with us. If you're lucky enough to find one of these rare coins, you could be holding on to a small fortune. Today, we've got something truly exciting to dive into: the United States 5-cent Jefferson nickel from 1964. Now, you might be thinking, it's just a nickel. How valuable could it possibly be? Well, stick around, because you're about to find out that this humble little coin could be worth far more than you ever imagined. The 1964 Jefferson nickel may seem like a common coin, but as with many coins, it's what's hidden beneath the surface that makes it truly special. Whether you're a seasoned coin collector or someone just getting into the hobby, this video is packed with valuable insights on how to spot a rare, high-value 1964 Jefferson nickel in your collection. So let's break it down and explore what makes this coin one worth keeping an eye out for. First, let's talk about the key features of the 1964 Jefferson nickel. On the front, you'll see the well-known portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States. Jefferson's likeness has adorned the obverse side of the nickel since 1938, and it's a design that's become iconic over the decades. The reverse of the coin features Monticello, Jefferson's famous home, which is also a key part of the coin's design. This design is rooted in history, making the 1964 Jefferson nickel not just a coin, but a small piece of American heritage. But beyond the standard design, the 1964 Jefferson nickel holds something even more exciting: errors and variations that could make it worth a significant amount of money. That's right, while the 1964 nickel is a staple in American coinage, certain errors or unique traits can make it highly sought after by collectors. If you've got a 1964 nickel sitting around, it could be more valuable than just 5 cents, so let's take a deeper look at the errors that make these coins so valuable. Point 1: of the most important errors you'll want to look for is the double die error. This happens when the coin is struck more than once during the minting process, causing a doubling effect in the design. In the case of the 1964 Jefferson nickel, this double die error might be visible on the date, the lettering around the rim, or other parts of the coin's design. If you look closely at the 1964 or Liberty on the obverse side and see any signs of doubling, you've got yourself a potential high-value coin. Double die errors are rare, and because they are so unique, they often fetch a much higher price in the market. Another error that collectors often look for is the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, causing part of the design to be shifted or even cut off. This error can be more difficult to spot, but it's very valuable if you find it. In the case of the 1964 Jefferson nickel, an off-center strike might leave part of Jefferson's portrait or Monticello off the edge of the coin. The more extreme the misalignment, the more valuable the coin becomes. So if you come across a 1964 nickel with a design that's clearly off-center, you've found something worth paying attention to. Now, let's talk about how to spot these rare and valuable coins. The first thing you want to do when you're inspecting a 1964 Jefferson nickel is to carefully examine the date. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect the 1964 closely. Look for any signs of doubling, especially around the numbers or the word Liberty. If you notice any blurring or overlap in the digits, you may have found a double die error. Next, take a close look at the coin's alignment. Hold the nickel in your hand and examine it from different angles. Look at the edge of the coin, particularly around Monticello. If you see that part of the design is missing or shifted, you may have found an off-center strike error. Off-center coins can vary in their misalignment, and the more extreme the error, the more valuable the coin can be. If neither of these errors is present, don't give up hope. It's still possible to find a 1964 nickel in great condition that holds significant value. Coins that are in mint or near mint condition are always more valuable than those that have been heavily circulated. The condition of the coin can make a huge difference in its value, especially when it's a well-preserved coin from an era like the 1960s. If your 1964 nickel shows minimal wear, has sharp details, and still has that nice shine, it could fetch a higher price even without any errors. Now, let's get to the most exciting part. Just how much is this 1964 Jefferson nickel worth? Well, it all depends on the condition of the coin and whether or not it has any of the errors we just talked about. In general, a regular 1964 nickel in circulated condition is worth just a few cents above face value. However, if your coin features a double die error, off-center strike, or is in mint condition, its value can skyrocket. In fact, a 1964 Jefferson nickel with an error or in excellent condition can be worth anywhere from $35,000 to $38,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. A nickel that was minted over 50 years ago could be worth tens of thousands of dollars if it has the right characteristics. Imagine finding a simple coin in your collection or your pocket change and realizing that it could be worth more than a house. That's what makes coin collecting so exciting. You never know when you'll come across a rare and valuable treasure. So, have you ever found a rare coin like the 1964 Jefferson nickel with an error? Or maybe you've come across another coin that turned out to be worth much more than you thought. We'd love to hear your stories. Drop a comment below and tell us about your coin hunting adventures. And remember, the more you learn about coins, the better your chances of finding something valuable. Today, we're diving into something that may surprise you, the United States 5-cent Jefferson nickel from 1984. Now, you might be thinking, it's just a modern nickel, what makes this one so special? Well, if you've been collecting coins for a while or even if you're just starting out, you know that there's always something more to a coin than meets the eye. And when it comes to the 1984 Jefferson nickel, there are some really exciting details that could make this seemingly ordinary coin a hidden treasure. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the key features of the 1984 nickel, some important errors to look for, and how to spot one of these rare, high-value coins. By the end of this video, you may start to view your 1984 nickels in a whole new light. So, let's get started and find out just why this coin is worth your attention. Let's first take a look at the key features of the 1984 Jefferson nickel. The design on the front of the coin features the well-known portrait of Thomas Jefferson, who has graced the obverse of the nickel since 1938. This iconic image of the third U.S. president is one of the most recognizable coin designs in history. On the reverse side, we see a depiction of Monticello, Jefferson's home in Virginia, which has been part of the nickel's design since its introduction. This design is timeless and connects the coin to the country's history, but here's the twist. While the 1984 Jefferson nickel is part of a well-known and long-standing series, this specific year's coin holds some interesting characteristics and possible errors that make it stand out from others in the same series. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next: what makes this coin different from your average nickel, and why it could potentially be worth a lot more than face value. Now, let's talk about errors that you should watch out for, as these are the key elements that can really elevate the value of the 1984 Jefferson nickel. The first and most important error to keep an eye out for is the double die error. Double die errors occur when the coin is struck more than once, creating a doubling effect on certain parts of the design. On the 1984 nickel, the most common areas where you might see doubling are the date, the word liberty, and the phrase e pluribus unum. If you closely examine the date, 1984, or the letters around the coin with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, you may see a blurry or doubled set of numbers or letters. If you spot any signs of doubling, you could have a very valuable coin on your hands. Double die errors are rare, and when they occur on coins as widely circulated as the 1984 nickel, it makes the error even more precious because collectors are eager to get their hands on these rarities. Another important error to look for is the off-center strike. Off-center strikes occur when a coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, and as a result, part of the coin's design is shifted or cut off. This is more common than you might think, but it's still a rare find and definitely something worth checking for. On a 1984 Jefferson nickel, an off-center strike might cause Jefferson's portrait or Monticello to be misaligned, and the design could spill over the edge or get partially cut off. The more extreme the misalignment, the more valuable the coin becomes. So, if you have a 1984 nickel with a noticeable off-center design, it could be a real jackpot. There's also a chance to find die cracks on a 1984 nickel. Die cracks happen when the metal dies used to strike the coins begin to wear out or crack. These cracks can leave visible lines or fissures on the surface of the coin, and while not as valuable as double die or off-center errors, die cracks still add a unique touch to the coin. So, check for any unusual cracks or raised lines, especially around Jefferson's portrait or along the rim of the coin. Now, let's talk about how you can actually spot these errors. The first thing you should do is carefully inspect the date, 1984, and the lettering around the coin. You'll want to use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to get a closer look. If you see any doubling or blurring in the digits or letters, you might have a double die error. The doubling can be subtle, so take your time and look carefully at the areas that are most likely to show the error, like the year and the words liberty and e pluribus unum. Next, examine the coin's alignment. Hold it at different angles to see if the design is misaligned or shifted. Pay attention to the reverse side, where Monticello is featured, as this is often where off-center strikes are most noticeable. If you see that part of the design is cut off or misaligned, that could indicate an off-center strike. Finally, look for any cracks on the surface of the coin. These cracks are usually found along the edges or around the design elements like Jefferson's portrait. If you find one, even a small crack, it could add value to the coin, as die cracks are often collected by enthusiasts who enjoy the uniqueness they bring to a coin's appearance. So now, you're probably wondering just how much your 1984 Jefferson nickel could be worth. Well, that depends on a few factors, like the condition of the coin and whether or not it has any of the errors we just talked about. A regular 1984 nickel in circulated condition is worth about 5 cents, but if your coin features a double die error, off-center strike, or is in mint condition, the value could increase dramatically. In fact, a rare 1984 Jefferson nickel with these errors or in excellent condition could be worth anywhere between $31,000 to $34,000. That's right, one simple nickel could be worth tens of thousands of dollars if it has the right characteristics. So, have you ever come across a rare 1984 Jefferson nickel? Or maybe you found a coin with an error that turned out to be worth more than you thought. We'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and share your experiences with us. Who knows, maybe you'll inspire other collectors to start looking at their pocket change a little more closely. Today, we're going to talk about one such coin, the 1985 Jefferson nickel. Now, you might think of the Jefferson nickel as just another everyday coin, but in the world of numismatics, it can be far more than just 5 cents. There are rare and valuable versions of the 1985 Jefferson nickel that you'll want to know about, and we're going to dive into exactly what makes this coin so special. Let's kick things off by taking a look at the key features of the 1985 Jefferson nickel. The obverse, or front, of the coin showcases the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States. Jefferson has been the face of the nickel since 1938, and his portrait is as iconic as it is timeless. The reverse side of the coin features an image of Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, which has also been a key feature of the nickel design for decades. The design itself is simple yet deeply rooted in American history, but here's where things get interesting. Although the 1985 Jefferson nickel may look like any other nickel you see in circulation, there are actually several errors and variations that can make this coin much more valuable than its 5-cent face value. These errors are rare, but they exist, and if you happen to find one, you could have a treasure on your hands. One of the most sought-after errors in coins like the 1985 Jefferson nickel is the double die error. A double die error happens when a coin is struck multiple times, causing the design to appear doubled. This can happen on any part of the coin, but in the case of the 1985 Jefferson nickel, the most common places to look for doubling are the date, 1985, and the word, Liberty. If you examine the date and notice that the numbers look blurry or slightly overlapping, that's a strong indicator that you have a double die error. This error is relatively rare and extremely valuable to collectors, especially when it appears on a coin that's as widely circulated as the 1985 nickel. Another error that could increase the value of your 1985 Jefferson nickel is the off-center strike. An off-center strike occurs when the coin isn't properly aligned during the minting process. As a result, part of the design could be shifted or even cut off entirely. In some cases, this error can be very noticeable, especially if a large part of Jefferson's portrait or Monticello is missing or shifted off the edge of the coin. If you happen to find a 1985 Jefferson nickel with an off-center strike, you found something worth serious attention. In addition to these errors, there are die cracks to be aware of. A die crack occurs when the metal dies used to strike the coin develop cracks or imperfections over time. These cracks can leave raised lines on the surface of the coin, sometimes creating an interesting, unique appearance. While die cracks aren't as valuable as double die errors or off-center strikes, they can still add a layer of uniqueness to your coin and make it more interesting to collectors. So, if you notice any cracks running through the design, especially along the edge or around Jefferson's portrait, you may have a valuable piece. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you spot one of these rare and valuable 1985 Jefferson nickels? Well, the first thing you'll want to do is closely examine the date, 1985, and the word, Liberty, on the obverse. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to look for any signs of doubling or blurriness in the numbers or letters. A true double die error will be visible to the naked eye, but a loupe can help you get a closer look and spot even the slightest imperfections. Next, check the alignment of the coin. Hold the 1985 nickel at different angles and see if the design looks shifted. Look especially at the reverse side, where Monticello is featured. If you notice that part of the design is missing or off-center, that's a sure sign of an off-center strike. This error can vary from coin to coin, so make sure to carefully inspect the edges and overall alignment. Finally, examine the surface of the coin for die cracks. Look closely at the design, especially around the edge or along Jefferson's portrait. If you see raised lines or cracks, you may have found a coin with this interesting and collectible feature. Now, let's get to the good part, the value of the 1985 Jefferson nickel. While a regular, circulated 1985 nickel isn't worth much more than its face value of 5 cents, if you're lucky enough to find one with an error or in pristine condition, its value can skyrocket. Coins with double die errors, off-center strikes, or in exceptional condition can be worth far more than most people realize. In fact, depending on the condition and whether it has any of the errors we discussed, the value of a 1985 Jefferson nickel could range anywhere from $34,000 to $33,000. Yes, a single nickel, worth just 5 cents, could be worth thousands if it has the right characteristics. It's crazy to think that such a small coin could fetch such a high price, but that's the magic of coin collecting. So, next time you're going through your pocket change or digging through your coin collection, take a closer look at your 1985 Jefferson nickels. With just a little bit of knowledge and a keen eye for detail, you could be holding onto a coin that could be worth far more than you ever expected. Remember, the key is knowing what to look for and understanding what makes these errors and unique coins so valuable. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Have you ever found a rare or valuable coin, whether it's a 1985 Jefferson nickel or something else? Drop a comment below and let me know. Sharing your stories could inspire others to look closer at their own collections. Today's video is just for you. We're about to dive into the fascinating world of the 1988 Jefferson nickel, a coin that might just look like a regular 5-cent piece, but could actually be a goldmine if you know what to look for. That's right, A 1988 Jefferson nickel could be worth far more than you think, and in this video, we'll break down the key features, common errors, and how to spot the rare ones that could make your collection much more valuable. Let's start by taking a look at the key features of the 1988 Jefferson nickel. As with most of the Jefferson nickels, this coin features the familiar and iconic portrait of Thomas Jefferson, who's been gracing the front of the nickel since 1938. The reverse of the coin shows a detailed depiction of Monticello, Jefferson's home in Virginia. The design has remained largely unchanged for decades, and it's one of the most recognized designs in American coinage. So, why does the 1988 Jefferson nickel stand out? Well, while most people think of it as just another modern nickel, there are some errors and variations that make it valuable to coin collectors, especially for those who know what to look for. We're talking about a few key imperfections that can turn a simple 1988 nickel into a rare and valuable coin. Let's first talk about the most exciting error to watch for, the double die error. A double die error occurs when a coin is struck more than once, and the second strike is slightly offset. This creates a double or blurry effect on the design, making certain features of the coin appear as if they've been stamped more than once. In the case of the 1988 Jefferson nickel, the areas most likely to show doubling are the date, 1988, and the word, Liberty. The doubling can be subtle, so you'll want to use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to really examine the coin. If you notice that the numbers in the year or the letters in the word, Liberty, appear to be doubled, then you've found an error that collectors will absolutely value. A coin with this error can be worth significantly more than its face value. Another potential error to look for on the 1988 Jefferson nickel is the off-center strike. Off-center strikes occur when the coin is misaligned during the minting process, causing part of the design to be shifted or cut off. In some cases, the off-center strike can be quite dramatic, with part of Jefferson's face or Monticello completely off the coin. Other times, the misalignment can be more subtle, but still visible. The more extreme the misalignment, the higher the coin's value. If you happen to find a 1988 Jefferson nickel with an off-center strike, that could be a game-changer for your collection. And let's not forget the die cracks, which can occur as the metal dies used to strike the coins begin to wear out or develop cracks over time. These cracks can create raised lines on the coin's surface, sometimes running through the design or along the edge of the coin. While die cracks are not as valuable as double die errors or off-center strikes, they can still add an interesting feature to a coin and make it more desirable to collectors. If you notice any cracks, especially around Jefferson's portrait or along the rim of the coin, be sure to take a closer look. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you spot these errors on a 1988 Jefferson nickel? The key is to look closely at the design, and here's how you can do it. First, carefully inspect the date, 1988, and the word, Liberty. Use a magnifying glass or loupe to look for any signs of doubling. If the numbers or letters appear blurry, doubled, or offset, you could have a valuable double die error on your hands. Pay close attention, because this type of error can be very subtle, so take your time when inspecting the coin. Next, check the alignment of the coin. Look at both the obverse, front, and reverse, back, sides of the coin to see if any of the design elements are misaligned. The most noticeable errors here would be an off-center strike where part of the design is either cut off or shifted to the edge of the coin. If you see that Monticello or Jefferson's face seems off-center or incomplete, you've got a potential collector's item. Finally, examine the surface of the coin for any die cracks. Run your fingers gently over the surface of the coin and look for any raised lines or cracks, especially around the edge of the coin or through the central designs. These are often small and can be easy to miss, but they do add a touch of rarity and uniqueness to the coin. Now, you're probably asking, how much is the 1988 Jefferson nickel really worth? After all, it's just a 5-cent coin, right? Well, here's the exciting part. If your 1988 nickel features any of these rare errors, or if it's in mint condition, the value can jump dramatically. A regular 1988 Jefferson nickel is worth just 5 cents in most cases, but when it comes to rare coins, the value can soar to impressive heights, depending on the condition of the coin and whether it has any of the errors we discussed. The 1988 Jefferson nickel can be worth anywhere from $31,000 to $30,000. Yes, you heard that right. A single nickel, worth just 5 cents in circulation, could potentially be worth thousands of dollars, depending on the error it contains. So, the next time you come across a 1988 Jefferson nickel, take a closer look. It might just be sitting in your pocket or in your coin jar, waiting to become your next big find. By keeping an eye out for these errors, you could discover a coin that's worth far more than you ever imagined. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever found a rare or valuable coin, like the 1988 Jefferson nickel, or another special find? What's the most valuable coin in your collection? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about rare and valuable coins, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our future content. Thanks for watching, and happy hunting for your next treasure.